have to tell you.
Missed opportunity. Missed opportunity by the manager, missed opportunity by the players, missed opportunity. There's a huge difference between 7 games back and 5 games back at this time of year.
Yes.
Missed chance, David.
Missed chance, and Craig Counsell wants to call it holding serve. I get that. He has to say that. But you are holding serve when you had an opportunity to regain command.
Yep.
Or regain some ground that you have lost over the last 6 weeks or so. And you were at home. It was a situation conducive for winning. And it's been quite a week at Wrigley Field. I think that, without exaggeration, when they won the doubleheader against the Brewers, we referred to it, I felt like it was the best day of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You beat the best team in baseball twice in your ballpark, and you revived hope because you were coming off a really bad loss on Monday. So I think the two things are true. Yesterday, 2 days after the best day of the season, I think was Craig Counsell's worst day as a manager. I really don't think that he had a good day. It was the opportunity that you speak of, and it was there for the taking. And he responded in a way that I feel like provided no clarity with Kyle Tucker, a lot of ambiguity still, and the lineup was inexcusable.
The lineup was bizarre. And when you saw the lineup, I don't know anyone that didn't just shrug. What is this? What are you doing? Why? It didn't make, and listen, it was nonsensical. It's not that it didn't make sense. It was the other way. It just was goofy and weird and kind of dumb. You can bring Tucker back and you can still play an Owen Casey who has been sort of a firebrand over the last 2 days and the last 3 games, has helped you a ton. The Matt Shaw thing is nonsensical.
The Matt Shaw thing is the worst, most egregious mistake yesterday.
That's your best hitter.
Yeah.
That's the guy that's hustling the best on the team. That is the guy that's going from first to the plate, running like crazy, grinding, breaking his rear end. You leave him in the 9-hole because you want to protect him and not put whatever it is. But I mean, and I'm sure there's some obscure statistic that would back playing Willie Castro in place. But you can play Willie Castro in place of other people.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you got to bench him. It also doesn't mean, Seiya Suzuki did nothing yesterday again, by the way. Why can't you take him out of the lineup?
Well, those are two very separate points, and they're both good ones because, first of all, Matt Shaw proved the night before in an 11-pitch at bat against a tough right-hander that handedness is really not a good enough explanation to take him out of the lineup. It's not even about batting him ninth as he continues to lead your team in every offensive category since the All-Star break. We could accept that, but at least he was batting in the lineup when he's batting ninth. Sitting next to the bench, he does no good. Next to the manager, It does no good. So that was the first thing. As for Suzuki, why is he in the lineup? We can get caught up about why Kyle Tucker is back and why didn't he just wait till Anaheim? Fine. But you can't really understand why a left-handed bat like Owen Casey, who's coming in hot, was on the bench with Matt Shaw, when Seiya Suzuki, who's in a worse slump or every bit as bad as Kyle Tucker's, is on the field in the lineup against a right-hander. Don't get it. That's the manager.
Like I said, I'm sure there are all sorts of different reasons that they're doing things, but that did not. It was worse than not making sense. It was nonsensical.
Mm-hmm. And
it was just.
Every year we wonder and we debate, and it's been an ongoing conversation throughout baseball, certainly in Chicago, how many games a year do the best managers win you? Well, that's fine. Yesterday was one I think you could point to, at least in part, that the managerial decisions contributed to that loss. They always do, but this seemed more egregious, and this seemed more inexplicable. And they needed it because of the stakes, too. You have won 3 of 4 in the series. You win 4 or 5, you have a much different feeling as you get on that plane.
No shadow of a doubt. You know, well, we got a lot of games in a row, and he's got to play in Anaheim. This is the biggest series of the year. You've got a chance to get back into the season. You know, we talk about this idea. You can pick up a game a week, right? Wouldn't you much rather have 5 games to pick up than 7? Isn't it incumbent upon you to do everything humanly possible to win that game yesterday and to do so over whatever games are upcoming against whatever teams are on the West Coast that are not playing particularly well and are not going to ever find their way to the playoffs this year?
No doubt about it. And I think Cub fans feel a sense of frustration at times because Craig Counsell does a terrific job of maintaining an even keel. And the clubhouse is certainly a pretty stable place. And he presents himself the same way every day. But no, as much as that is his strength, no, not every day is alike. And yesterday was one that was different. And it represented a chance for the Cubs to make up some lost ground, and I think they squandered it badly.
Yeah, it was, again, I don't know anybody that liked that. We had an exchange. It was very funny because maybe the Shaw thing.
I can't even remember what I was so mad.
You were so funny.
I was so mad about that.
I said, is there a single, media type fan observer of the Cubs who would like that Matt Shaw move? And you suggested Willie Castro's wife.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Which was very funny. But she could have been just as happy if he played another position.
I suppose.
He didn't have to play that one.
And I think Willie Castro
I like him a lot.
Is a guy who's been invaluable since arriving. But he also could be somebody that gives, if he would have given Seiya Suzuki a break, I'd have understood that better.
I agree.
Seiya Suzuki is really struggling, and I don't know. And Pico Armstrong right now, as much as he has gotten off to the great start, and he had an all-star beginning as well, but he's really hurting them offensively.
The Cubs got 8 walks yesterday. They were walked 8 times. They had runners on base for a living. And you know what they did? They left them on base for a living. It was so frustrating. They were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. And it's round up the usual suspect. So you look at every guy's trip to the plate, and, a bunch of guys had 1 hit. 5 different guys had 1 hit. And some of them had a hit and a walk, and that's great. But guess what? They weren't scoring runs. They did not take advantage of any of it. And as bad as a couple of moments were pitching, you can't get down on that.
Seiya deserved better.
Seiya
pitched well enough to win that game.
I don't know what
he went into the 7th.
Frazier deserves.
Yeah, that's
tough.
That was tough.
He's getting long in the tooth, and they've trusted him for.
I don't know where he is in terms of that circle of trust, but he's inconsistent.
But as inconsistent, as bad as that may have been, how do you get down on him when you're 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position? You cannot score. We're back to that.
The Brewers used 6 pitchers to keep the Cubs to 1 run. Pat Murphy pushed all the right buttons on a day that Craig Counsell just didn't have it. If you're talking head-to-head managerial decisions and lineups and moves, that just yesterday was one of those days you chalk up as a managerial loss.
He pushed the wrong buttons to begin with.
I
think you saw that lineup and you're like, oh boy.
And yes, we can pick apart the lineup every day, and yes, we do give it heightened scrutiny because we're here for 4.5 hours. But I tell you, you don't have to be in this business. You just typical Cub fan, common sense. Hottest hitter since the All-Star break. Biggest game of the series. Matt Shaw's going to be on the bench? I don't think that he gave a reasonable explanation for it.
No, he didn't.
And I think he owes Cub fans a reasonable explanation for it.
The other thing is, I'm sorry, but there's nothing wrong with, showing the W flag. We work with Dustin Rhodes. He lives for that thing. But it feels like there's members of the media that are just running around with a W flag or a Cubs flag and planting it every time you talk about. I couldn't believe the reaction that the story yesterday, and I heard it like 4 different places, was that there was nothing wrong with Kyle Turner because he played so well in June. He got hurt, but he played fine, and you can't blame them for staying with him and only deciding to bench him when they're in the biggest series of the year because he did so well in June.
I was struck by how
Give me a break.
quickly that explanation was accepted. And because it seems to me inconceivable, or let me rephrase it. I think that it's totally plausible to think that somebody who injures his hand in early June tries to play through it and maybe even has some success, as Kyle Tucker did, but I don't know that that means it heals. And I don't think that it means that it removes the doubt that he's going to it was a hairline fracture if we're to believe the reports, and there's no reason not to. And so he has early success dealing with it, playing through it.
Adrenaline.
Right. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily healed. He never got time to rest it.
And then he picks up a bunch of bad habits, apparently. And then it all goes haywire. And then you wait until you're playing the Brewers to actually sit the guy down. Like, I'm sorry. It was like deciding to rest people on a game where you had to win it in order to still keep your division hopes alive.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
true.
The same thing.
It seemed like healthy skepticism was the right response to the way the Cubs explained something they were trying to conceal. And I don't understand why there wasn't more of that. But
there was none.
There was really like, oh, okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense. And Kyle Tucker's a pro, and he wants to play through these things, but his explanation was no more clear about, at least within the player's sense, you have a respect for him wanting to wanting to get through it by just being somebody who is ignoring the pain. But it wasn't just pain, it was injury. There's a difference.
You needed to sit the guy down like a month earlier or 3 weeks earlier, or not on this series. I can't believe that is somehow escaping people.
It has, apparently, and not everybody, but I do think enough to notice. And I understand that it's difficult sometimes to be out there on a regular basis, and that proximity maybe gives you the ability to give them the benefit of the doubt. It just doesn't really add up. And the explanation just isn't acceptable when you have an injury that we found out about not from the team, and it was a report that they confirmed. And that I don't think they ever fully explained. It's still kind of mysterious.
I agree. And I think that, from our perspective, we've both been beat writers. We've both been covering teams. I understand the difficulty and the pressure and the urge to get all parts of the story. But you have to maintain a very healthy sort of cynicism about everything that is happening. I'm not saying that you can listen and report what people say is the story, but you also have to understand that there is a larger picture as well, and you gotta have it all in unison, and you can't just think, well, oh, that makes sense. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Well, he was good for that first. Okay, then everything's forgiven and all is well. No, that's not how it works, and I really believe that I've had some hard moments as a result of kind of, well, wait a minute, what about this? And I think it's a very good way of operating.
Well, the question that was never fully addressed that I didn't hear it asked, or maybe it was just something I missed. But when they said that, Craig Counsell said players always often conceal things, or we don't always know everything that's bothering a player. And I just wonder, did they ever go back and consider sitting him out when he started to struggle in July? And if they had those kind of conversations, why did they not just err on the side of caution, because it is such a long season? We hear all the time about how long of a season it is. Don't overreact to this or to that. So if you have the long view of everything all the time, why was that not taken in this situation.
That's exactly correct, David. I mean, listen, you waited until the worst possible moment and then said, oh, we got to deal with this. I'm sorry, but at bare minimum, you should have dealt with it 10 days earlier, 2 series early, whatever way you want to word it.
And what he did to maybe get a short-term fix to get through June, to whatever degree he was injured or impaired, that may have been fine for June, but then those clearly changed his swing or certainly affected his results because he's not been the all-star player since about the beginning of July. And he's still, what is it today? August 22nd?
Yes.
It's more than a month since his last home run. And not that he's a guy that you're going to expect to – no, you expect more home runs from Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's fair to, given all that we made him out to be in the first 2 months of this season. Now it's just like he's up there yesterday, and is there any expectation that he's going to come through? No. Why is he still batting second? Don't know. And then in right field, I have to say, a tough catch, tough situation, but I did wonder to myself, would Owen Casey have caught that ball? Would Owen Casey have gone into that wall? These are the unfair kind of thoughts that you have when you have been through the week that we have.
I just don't understand how, Owen Casey can combine with Matt Shaw to make some spectacular defensive plays, to make some key offensive plays, and then the two of them have to sit. What? How old are these dudes? Matt Shaw's still like 23 years old. This is a young guy. I don't think, when I was 23, I didn't run out of energy. I ran out of time in a few different nights, and then I just would keep going for a couple days. I think you have unbelievable resources of energy when you're that age. I don't think these guys are in danger of burning out or not. What are you doing?
And just so we're fair here, the left-handed bat that we're asking to be in the lineup, not necessarily for Tucker, but for Suzuki yesterday, over the last 30 days, Seiya Suzuki has 1 home run and 5 runs batted in. His OPS over the last 30 days is 580. He's hitting a robust 184. If that's not screaming for a day off, I don't know what is. That was an opportunity to rest a right-hander against a right-hander, a guy who needs his own break, and Owen Casey sitting there waiting to be called on to pinch hit, which is a tough situation for anybody, let alone a 23-year-old in his first week as a major leaguer.
Yeah, and I don't think we're second guessing here. I think we were first guessing, frankly.
Totally.
So I don't want to hear any of that either. This guy texting in thinks that whatever. I got to tell you.
Well, if you're not skeptical and if you're not cynical and if you're not really a little bit miffed after the way yesterday was handled, then I think that you're just essentially have conceded that you will accept any explanation from the Cub organization and you will believe anything that Craig Counsell says is gospel.
Yeah.